Okay, I'm here to introduce our next speaker, Clifford Rainey, who is, of course, chair of the Glass program at the California College of Arts in Oakland, California, where he has taught since 1991. Thank God for our marketing department who put all these bios in a place where we can find them later when our minds are all fuzzed up with wine and reveling. Clifford was born in Northern Ireland, received his MA from the Royal College of Art in London, where he was a lecturer from 1977 until 1984. Really? Seriously? Clifford, you're that old?
Unfortunately, yes.
I know, it's hard to imagine. He's always... You can't hear me? Why not? Can you still not hear me? Okay. It's hard to imagine that Clifford is as old as he is. He's always seemed to me the Peter Pan of the glass world. While the rest of us careen downhill, gathering pounds, wrinkles, and gray roots, Clifford is in some kind of fiendishly ageless holding pattern. And to irritate us even further, he shows up in Portland on the occasional June 21st to celebrate a birthday and really rub it in. Peter Pan, of course, does come to mind, but maybe it's Dorian Gray. Last year, in an effort to age him just a little, I invited him to present at BECon and to create an entirely new exhibition for us. We might have been really obvious and called it gray. Instead, after a lot of talking about stuff that Clifford will tell you more about, we settled instead on black. I'm proud to say that I think I have just added a few years to Peter Pan with that one. Thank you, Clifford, for humoring me, and thank you for being with us today.
Actually, that was nice. Thank you. I'll get you back. Okay. Like everybody else, I'm always start off being incredibly nervous. But once I get going, I'm usually okay. So, good morning. And I've got to read my notes. And again, I have a Northern Irish accent, so with Scotland, you should be getting a real kind of education in linguistics the next couple of days. I thought I would actually wear my Dick Marquis camouflage rugby shirt today just to blend in. trying to relax here a little bit. This is a totally scary talk for me, being up here. And Lanny, why me? It says here, take a deep breath. This is a very difficult talk to give. And it's going to be a very low-tech images. As you can see on the screen, all my images are totally black. that I am just kidding. It is going to be a very personal talk. It's actually a story, really, and a journey. Part of the difficulty is that there is absolutely no finished work in the talk, only works in progress. Prelude. I know that I am not alone, but the last 18 months have been brutal. A few years back, when the economy tanked, I was forced to buy my way out of my studio lease once again and let my two wonderful supportive assistants go. It was about this time that collectors, hope there's not too many people in the audience, started asking for ridiculous discounts, which I have always found incredibly insulting. Money troubles started in earnest. Getting a little emotional. Just give me a moment. Let me see. This is my mum and dad at home in Northern Ireland about 2 years ago. Just after this photograph was taken, my dad became seriously ill. And I was going back and forward to Northern Ireland, but while I was at home in Napa, because I was worried and I was, you know, trying to work out how to deal with it, I started doing this drawing. And eventually, my dad died, and I stopped the drawing, and I signed it and dated it. And this is the place I was in 18 months ago. As things happen, my very best friend, Faber, died. I'm so emotional I can't remember where I am. So this is up in Utah at Spiral Jetty, because you know, Faber was really into art. Literally. So anyway, you know, doing what I do for a living, I did a tracing of Faber as an outline. I just lay him down and did a drawing. And at this point, I discovered this noun, loss. And being a little broke and not having a lot of money to buy glass and various things, I thought it would be best maybe to just work on drawings and printmaking. So this was just a little sketchbook drawing, and then another little sketchbook drawing maybe for a cutout. And then this was just a little water jet etching plate, which I then took Faber out of the plate, so that I was trying to work out how to deal with loss. I'll put this down a second. Okay, so once upon a time, I was feeling sorry for myself. I was broke. I was disillusioned with both life and art. I was in a very dark place. One day, I swallowed my pride and I called my very good friends, Lanny and Dan, and explained my predicament. I received an email with a proposition, which Lanny just mentioned, suggesting a black show. Even though I don't particularly like black, I had no hesitation in accepting. A few days later, I received this wonderful book, Black. And basically, the pressure was on. The title of the show should really be Loss, or A Sense of Loss, because this was the emotion I was feeling at the time. And then there was the burden of this strange dark material called black. So I decided the title should actually be In the Beginning Was Black. Today, I hope to give you a visual story to try and illuminate why I am here to talk about the color black. This is the kind of academic kind of bit. Black, the optics. In the visual spectrum, black absorbs light and is absent of color. Now, let's not bring up the chromatic revolution of 1665 and Sir Isaac Newton. That's for another day. But basically, for me, when you look at black, no visible light reaches the eye. It is the darkest color. Black as coal, night, ebony, graphite, darkness, burnt wood, outer space, soot, Indian ink, obsidian, a black hole, etc., etc., etc. The word black derives from ancient Greece, to burn, to scorch. The ancient Romans had two words for black. Ater was a flat, dull black, while niger was a brilliant, saturated black. After the ater has vanished from the vocabulary, but niger was the source of the country name Nigeria, for instance. In Latin, the word for black, ater, was associated with cruelty, brutality, and evil. It was the root of the English word atrocity. Art. Black was most likely the first color used to create art. The Lascaux cave in France contains drawings of bulls and other animals drawn from some 18,000 years ago. They used burnt charcoal and then more vivid blacks by burning bone and then ivory black. Process. A synopsis. I think through making and drawing. Making something over time allows for change, alterations, and sometimes abandonment. I have tried to include images of processes that I am frequently asked to explain, especially investment molds. My apologies to those in the audience who are competent mold makers. Some people aren't. I do not normally show studio process slides, so please forgive the bad quality of images. Hot wax and wet plaster are not compatible with digital cameras. In the Black show, there is going to be 20 sculptural works with 217 separate castings, I hope. The talk will be held together through the pages of my sketchbook. Lastly, I will attempt to explore the concepts, purpose, reason, and processes employed to formulate the works that will comprise my Black exhibition at the Bullseye Gallery in September. That's what it says in the catalogue, so I have no choice. They say things happen in threes. At this time, if things weren't bad enough, my brother-in-law succumbed to motor neuron disease, a horrible disease, and passed away. So once again, I was back in Northern Ireland in the UK. But every time I go to London, which is pretty frequent, first stop is the British Museum. And then the second stop is this wonderful art store just down the road where I always buy my sketchbooks. Very wonderful little piece of bound paper. And then it says here, believe it or not, ad lib and be speedy. So the idea basically was that I would take a sketchbook. I had no idea what I was going to do, and basically just try to come up with what is black. I mean, what can I make in black? So this is kind of the beginning of me thinking through the sketchbook. I did some really quick little drawings. I am going to move pretty fast, just to try to think of what I want to do. And then made a list of kind of working titles. And I'm moving fast because I'm realizing there's some spelling mistakes. About this time, there was an incredible exhibition came to the Bay Area, to the Young, or maybe it was the Legion of Honor, from the tombs in Burgundy. It was called the Mourners. And I was under a little bit of pressure to make some work from certain people. So this was my first departure. And again, a lot of these slides are processed, so forgive me. So basically, sketchbook drawings, trying to work out, there's a quote from John Henry, fear not, whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the actual, a lot of the actual ideas, but kind of focus on more how they're evolving. So this was how I started off in the studio, and I was basically just modeling up these figures in different combinations. They're only about 15 inches tall, I think. And then basically just very simply draped canvas cloth over them. And I did a whole series to try to work out how to do this thing. Now, the whole reason for doing them wasn't the mourner as such, but I was really interested in the void inside, this darkness, this void. There's nothing there. All the people I'd loved have gone, and there's emptiness. So this is the one I decided to make. And it was then mold making, of course, made in wax, back eventually into glass, black glass. And then I added a little feet inside, which kicks in just because that was just the remnant of what was there in the first place. And then the Newman sort of quote actually goes around the perimeter of the rondelle. And that's obviously in the Bullseye Gallery, and it's the only piece finished. Then I started playing around with, I was still thinking of this, what was going on. So again, black to me wasn't the color, it was the senses of the color gave me, and memory was a big issue. So this was the little piece. I got some clay, got a lot of clay, and I squeezed them like a head. And so it's a memory head, and they're just basically little heads on this pillow resting. Then one starts to think, when you don't really think about a color, you don't see it. But then all of a sudden I started seeing black everywhere. It's very strange. I like to write, I like to draw, and I love letter writing and stamps, proper mail. So I suddenly realized all my pens, Mont Blanc or vintage Parkers, were all black. I get inspiration from a particular thing. I just didn't realize just how dark Guinness is. And I should know. And then I was looking through some photographs and I go, oh my God, their door in Scotland is black. And Lanny's wearing black. And I thought, that's it. I've got a gripe. And just give me a little second. I put these in so it would help me kind of relax. Loss. It's really important that when you realize you're losing something, and it can be lots of different things. Now, I'm going to be a little careful what I say here, but where I'm from, I was born very close to Bushmills Distillery in Northern Ireland. It's a very Protestant place. It's not our fault, which it is. So, originally 10 years ago, Black Bush, get me? The label was orange. William of Orange, you know. And then the company was bought over by an American company down in Tennessee, I think. So they changed the orange to red. And then what happened last year was that company or whatever was bought over, I think it was Diablo. And of course, they didn't want that connotation, so they took the orange red out altogether, and it's just black. So I just wanted to get that out of my system. Thank you. But it made me realize that I have to remember I'm still searching for what I want to do with this upcoming exhibition. So I went back to the Coca-Cola bottle, which is something I've always played with, and I decided to do. I was reading War and Peace again, or actually, I'm going to lie. I started reading War and Peace again, and then I decided to do a piece based on that. And again, these are all very simple studio shots. So one's cast in black glass, one's clear, and the black one's got ammunition in it, spent ammunition, and the one on the left, the clear one, I'm not sure what's going to be in there yet. I'm still working on these. Then I did a piece I did before, but I wanted to do it in black, called it's about globalization. So it was called Split Icon. It was going to be kind of obsidian. So when you talk about loss, this is kind of a studio shot. If you look at the back, let me see if I can do this. And you look at that guy. Now, that Coca-Cola bottle is actually finished in glass and polished, and it took a long time. And basically, I live in Northern California. I'm not from there. But what happens sometimes, it gets very hot. And the column was wax, and of course I didn't have the sense to take it down at night. So the next day when I went into the studio, the piece had melted, and of course the piece was on the floor. And I thought, oh, loss. I then went ahead. Actually, there's 19 pieces in this show. So then I went back. I had a show here many years ago, which I was kind of a retrospective. It was one of my favorite shows upstairs in the Bullseye Gallery. And there was a piece there, most likely one of my favorite pieces, called Africa, but it was totally red, cadmium red. So I decided to try to do the same thing in black. So again, this is a piece in the studio, which I'm working on. All these are just there working on. There's a little memory head at the bottom. The piece in the foreground is called Monument to a Failed Idea. And the chair is going to be a piece called, come on, Clifford, Knowledge. And it's going to have a little black, light bulb on it. So, you know, this whole idea of knowledge, or what is knowledge, and what's good knowledge and bad knowledge. So I'm going to put in some process slides just to show kind of the mold making I do. So this chair was made up very simply in cutting foam, covered in wax. And then the molds I make, because you know there's so many parts underneath the mold to get the glass into, so I make these molds, which are just stacked molds basically, you know, just making layers all the way up. Then I, you know, burn out the wax, stack the whole pieces back together again, and then there they are ready for pouring the glass into. And that way, you can actually, as you're putting each stack of mold, you can actually put the glass in and stack it up, and you get reasonably good castings. I took myself off to the Greek islands because, you know, one has to, and while I was there, and again, it's hard to, it's hard to articulate what I'm going through here, but I'm trying to find out what I'm doing for the show. And we sailed into this little bay, and it's actually it's a Roman baths. But something I noticed right away was graffiti. And graffiti, I've got a little love-hate with graffiti. Don't do it on my wall. So basically, it sprung something. I don't know what. I became quite interested. It reminded me of Newgrange in the Republic of Ireland. And if you look at that big rock on the foreground, there is the graffiti. Then thinking back to, I went to Istanbul, and the Hagia Sophia. I'm standing looking down over the balcony, and I look at the balcony top, the marble, and there is graffiti, and next to it is. Now, whoever knew that the Vikings went to Istanbul and put graffiti onto this wonderful church mosque, and so this started building up. So I decided to do a piece called, originally, what was the root of the word graffiti, graffito, whatever, or graphen to do with writing. And so I still enjoy working with the figure. So this is the drawing, a sketchbook drawing for this piece, which would be cast. And then, again, I work in wax, so the piece is built up with wax, so that each casting fits together. I'm banging and hitting the wax so that I get this quality of stone when it's cast. And then there's areas, lots of areas are going to be polished because it's going to be covered with as many names of people in history from 2,000 years as I can do before the gallery show opens. So the idea is when the show's open, it'll just be covered with names. It's a form of graffiti. Again, it's not finished. This is just a studio shot. You can see the pieces in cast in glass, so everything's kind of moving forward. Again, the last couple of years, listening to the news, reading newspapers, various things. Of course, we talked about nuclear energy and what was happening in Japan. And I read an incredible book years ago, I'm sure some of you did too, called Children of the Ashes. People might remember back to the old days of CND, the campaign for nuclear disarmament. So I had always wanted to do a piece based on it, but didn't know how to do it. So basically the idea was to make a big glass rondelle and then do this kind of mushroom with my finger going into the center of the piece. And again, just some process shots. I make molds in many different ways. These are very simple. Again, that's not meant to be a plug, but we get our glass delivered, obviously, in these big tubs. I'm sure you all do. And then what we normally do, when I say we, my assistants do, they break up all the glass into different sizes so that when it comes to loading kilns, it's an easier process. Then, I need to look at my notes. Excuse me. Then I rediscovered this incredible book, which everybody has to read 3 or 4 times. I need my glasses as well, because as Lanny said, I am getting really old. Things Fall Apart, it's by the Nigerian author Chinua Achebe. The title of the novel comes from the William Butler Yeats poem, In the Second Coming. It's set in pre-colonial Nigeria in the 1890s. Things Fall Apart highlights the clash between colonialism and traditional cultures. As with Yeats, complex rituals, symbolism, and myths play a major role in the novel. In Things Fall Apart, the mask, the earth, the legends, the rituals all have significance in the story as well in the Igbo culture. Fertile subject matter for a visual artist. So I decided this was going to be the real starting point. I was very lucky when I was younger. I went to Kenya and I walked to South Africa and I walked back up again. And the experiences I had in Africa I'd kind of forgotten about. So this rekindled, a lot of the images. I looked into the old photographs, especially with the Maasai. And then I started looking at the adornment, the clothing, the jewelry, and the way that they would manipulate their ears. And I mean, it just was so visual. And then I remembered burden. People would actually carry very heavy weights on their head, and I'm dealing with the whole idea of like soreness. So basically I decided that I'm going to work on this from this book, and the first number of pieces are going to be called Sore Head. I teach at California College of the Arts, And there's a chap called Mike who just happens to be the, one of the safety officers. And I made a proposition, and I don't think he quite heard me, but he said yes. So the funny thing is, here's something. He's holding his cell phone. It's covered in paper, and yet he's got this thing on his head. I do a lot of live castings, but I don't like to take them directly into the work. So what I do is I do very simple live castings, and then I take a little dermagel or whatever, and I take the separate parts like ears, nose, and then I build up this little library of different parts of different people, and then I intermix them when I'm making the waxes. So this is kind of building up the head and shoulders of Sorehead 1. Then, again, I'm constantly looking for icons which are black, and of course, then popped in, you know, the mag light. So I decided to do Sorehead 2, and this is just on the patio outside my studio, just working on Mike, who's now Sorehead 2. Again, just very simple mold making. I try to make molds as simple as possible. I get tired. And again, on the left-hand side there, you'll see the two glass pieces already cast sitting on the bottom. This was last week, which is nice. It's actually glass. It's all hand padded, and it's ready for polishing. So we're moving forward. Again, this is Sorehead number 2. I went back to the book, and you know, there was so many mentions of masks. So of course, you have to do a little research. I went back, and I'm not going to read this, but everyone should read this book. But basically, I decided it'd be really nice to start playing with masks. So, and again, I'm a little careful how I'm going to say this, but I want to be a little derogatory towards like organized religion, basically. So basically what's going to happen, these masks, which are upside down, but the ears are going to be the right way up, and then hanging from them, the first one's going to have these crucifixes and things happening, and then I'm going to be becoming a little bit more contemporary, like with maybe nanos, little things more from today with electronics and things. I haven't quite worked it out yet. I've still got 6 weeks. So this is the waxes for the pieces. Again, I'm just going to throw some things through. Coming from Britain, we cannot understand the fixation over here with guns. No offense meant, but it is meant to be an offense, yeah. So, with all the stuff going on, you know, thinking back to John Lennon all the way up to today and all the schools, I just felt like I had to do something because it's a dark subject. So I took my gun out. Just joking. just joking. I'm British, I'm not allowed one. And I decided to, because every time I talk to people, they say, it's the Second Amendment. And I go, change it. So this piece is going to be called Amend the Second Amendment. And it's basically going to be 2 blocks of glass. They're not very big. And then inside, there's going to be this image of a handgun, but the gun's not actually in there. It's just the image of it. You know, it's just the negative. This is in the kiln. And hopefully tomorrow night, when I get home, it'll be in there and in 1 piece or 2 pieces. So again, these are just the molds running through. It's very simple 50-50. And I love this new material. Not so new, but now, but vermiculite. And then that's just loading them in the kilns. I always do a number of pieces because I would love to say that everything I do and everything I put in the kiln comes out, but to be quite honest, it actually always doesn't. So then there's a piece I wanted to do. Again, I'm trying to play with loss, and then I was thinking of fall and nature, and I wanted to do a female figure to do with just the winter coming in and the darkness. And I was originally going to do oak leaves, but it didn't work. So I ended up thinking about using just people, the touch, people touching and things going through. So this was a piece originally going to be called The Dust of Tradition. I haven't worked out a final title yet. And again, this is just working on the wax. A lot of waxes in this talk. Again, this shows a little bit the way I work. I make all these different components, and then when I get to the wax, then I reassemble. And again, sometimes there's 2 or 3 people in the same figure. And there's just the hands, negative hands. And they're going to be a little violent. There's going to be things happening. So again, this is Mike's head. It's in glass, but the column is still in wax. And it's, again, without going into it too far, to do with railroads going into different places and opening up. It happened in America, it happened in Britain, it happened in Africa. And the railway spikes. And this is just the wax, so I'm getting ready for casting the glass. These molds are ready, they're not in the kiln yet. Again, getting back to this incredible imagery, I decided to invert the heads and make them upside-down heads, and then I was going to reintroduce human bones into the pieces just to give them a little bit more weight and a little bit more horrific. And this getting back to these Latin words and what the words really mean. So these are just the sketchbook sketches. So I took many logs, and I just scorched them black. The whole idea is the show is meant to be black. This is that log scorched now in wax, double piece. And I'm trying to deal with balance so that the pieces are not just upright, there's a little awkwardness to them. And again, getting ready for mold making, I put these little wax pieces on the top so when I put them into the mold, it doesn't float or move away. Everybody knows chicken wire. And then the cores are always a little difficult, so I use nichrome wire and things to hold them in place, and then they go in the kiln, and when I'm moving around I put little pads and stuff in. So it's all very basic, but everything's building up. They come out absolutely beautiful. And this is last week again. So this is upside down head number 1 with a wax bone in it, and this is actually glass, and it's not worked yet. And then, of course, as I'm doing all this and I'm dealing with all this emotion thing, my good friend, the author, passed away a month or 2 ago. So it all seemed to be just happening. So then I thought I might go back into some old pieces, dealing with loss. I'm rethinking some of the old pieces. I'm not sure if I'm going to put them in the show or not. And then, again, I don't want to give a history lesson, but thinking back to the 1500s, the invention of type and the printed matter, and forever, black and white was never the same again. It was never perceived the same again by human beings. I had a drawing on my studio wall for something I did years ago, and I never knew where to take it. So I decided to think about the whole idea of literary heads and reading and knowledge and everything. So basically, it was books. I was going to have a head with type on the top or fonts, and then basically, I just, this is just making or thinking through the process. And then this is now cast in glass. So the books are in glass and the head's in glass. And the only difference is when it's all cleaned and polished up is the piece behind the letters will be gold leaf. So the only thing will happen is the letters will stand out. A piece I did a long time ago for a show, never really finished it, genomics, about I'm always a little worried about population control. I think there's too many people on this planet. That's only my opinion, but there are. So I did these pieces about genomics, just like endless castings of these baby heads. But I was really pleased, to be quite honest, that Obama got elected again. My apologies again for the people who don't believe in Obama. But I thought I'd just add something. So these are the heads for most of genomics, with the little barcode on the back for genomics. And then I'm going to add one baby head where the O is in genomics. This is a hard one to talk about because when I was really down, I suddenly realized I was kind of, I'm a pretty liberal guy, but I suddenly realized there's a lot of prejudices and things I was uncomfortable with. Well, why do I believe that, or why do I believe that? I shouldn't do that today. So they weren't bad ones, but I just was uncomfortable, so I wanted to block them. So I've done this little piece, and it's just using a block from glass blowing, to block. And I took a little river stone, a little obsidian river stone, and then I scorched the wood. It's now cast in glass, so the piece in the bottom is scorched wood glass. And then there's a little block, which is not finished yet. Well, nothing's finished yet. And then there's a little stone. So this is just blocking a prejudice. How am I doing for time? 10:15. Oh, that's telling me how much I've got left. Okay, I'm okay. So basically, again, John Donne, I'd love to talk a lot about John Donne, but there's one quote, everybody knows this quote, and I can't see it because I'm blind. So I'm not going to, no man is an island, everyone's part of the continent, part of the whole. So I've always, it's always loved this quote. So I like the idea of the human being, expanding and becoming part of this whole, but actually also having the freedom to move and do things. So in the past, I've made a lot of pieces based on No Man is an Island, except they're usually quite small. So for the show, I wanted to do a female life-size one. So again, this is just me a couple of days ago, working, just hanging it in the wall to see how it's working. And I didn't like it, so I've now inverted this piece as well. So it's meant to be like a human being blasting out into the ocean and becoming a whole mass of islands. But we'll see. Again, with all this stuff happening at home and family, I wanted to spend a little time with my mother, and I couldn't afford to spend a month or two in Northern Ireland doing nothing, because I'm busy and I have a show coming up. So I searched for something to do in Belfast. I got a residency in a print workshop, and I decided to do a piece just simply called The Last Wolf. So this was, I took Faber, and then I kind of redrew it as a wolf. And this is a sketchbook. And then this was me a few weeks ago, just doing some printmaking in Belfast. And my apologies, there's a little red in the print. I had to try some different colors. This is a list of castings, because basically, you might see up there, Where Are We, June? I've still got quite a bit to do, and there's a lot of pieces. Now, let's say there's 217 separate castings in the show, so there's a lot of production. So this is Bonehead. It's four times higher or bigger than life size, and these are just some of the bones, the wax head. And then again, I'm getting very close to the end. And then this is just the pure production of bones, making lots and lots of bones, multiple molds in the same kiln, very simply using little ceramic tops for the reservoirs. There's the glass. This was last week. Getting ready to come out of the kiln. This was Monday before I left for here. And then I wanted to do something again, because unfortunately the process I go through, some of the pieces become quite expensive. So I want to do some little small pieces for the wall. One's going to be a little earth, and then one's going to be manipulated to be a potato. So, and the whole idea is it's inexpensive, meaningful art. So even people like me could afford them. Another touchy subject. We don't really think about it, because black, I kept seeing black on these roads, these tarmac roads or asphalt roads or whatever, and it's an intrusion. They go right through nature. And we don't really think about it. We're so used to it. I mean, Oakland, where I partly live now, people forget it used to be oak trees. It was a beautiful place, apparently. And now it's this kind of ugly city. Oh, anybody here from Oakland? Sorry. But seriously, and this is Napa. And what they're doing in Napa now is that they're building new roads and things. And it's a real shame. So this is intrusion, the beginning of. And this was only a week or two ago. So I found this tire. And then every time I drive home, there's always some little creature squashed on the road. And it just bugs me, So terrible drawing. This was in a real hurry because I was coming here. So the idea is to do this three-piece tire tread. It's going to be 16 feet long. And then on it, it's going to have, I've taken a clear wolf skull and then smashed it. And it's going to, this is just a mock-up for coming here. So this is basically a real work in progress from a couple of days ago. So this is the wax ready for casting. Oh, I'm going to go back. That was too quick. This is the mold, which I was doing on Monday before I came here. So it's going to go in the kiln Sunday night. This is my studio where I really enjoy working. And thank you.